Coming up, many tribal nations were historically matrilineal, and that meant women were the decision makers. We'll meet one Chickasaw woman being recognized. Plus, a prominent state lawmaker in Kansas is speaking out about a racially insensitive incident. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. A major report outlining the impacts of federal boarding schools is expected to be completed this week. In June, the Department of the Interior announced it was preparing a first-of-its-kind report. The report will look at historical records and potential burial sites of Indigenous children. At the National Congress of American Indians mid-year conference, Secretary Deb Haaland announced the news. At the time, she said, "I know that this process will be long and difficult. I know that this process will be painful. It won't undo the heartbreak and loss we feel. But by acknowledging the past, can we work towards a future that we're all proud to embrace?" Starting in 1819, the United States government enacted laws to assimilate Native children. It has been anecdotally noted for years in Native communities that not all children made it home after they were taken from their homes. And this investigation in the United States was prompted by the discovery of 215 unmarked graves at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in Canada. The final report is due to Secretary Haaland by April 1st, and it is not clear if that report will be made immediately available to the general public. In Rapid City, South Dakota, a lawsuit is being filed against a hotel that is banning Native people from staying in its facilities. Indigenous groups organized a rally last week against the issue, and a federal civil rights class action lawsuit was filed against Grand Gateway Hotel. After a shooting, one of the owners of the hotel wrote a now-deleted comment saying that she cannot allow a Native American to enter her business. At the rally, President and CEO of NDN Collective, Nick Tilson, says the hotel is actively denying Native people from renting rooms.
The Grand Gateway made their announcements that they wouldn't serve our people, And so what we did was we said we wanted to call their bluff and see if they would. So we sent our people up there. We sent our people up to the Grand Gateway. And guess what? They denied service to Indian people.
Tilson says they want to stop business owners and politicians from attacking Native people through discrimination tactics. In Washington, D.C. last week, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson answered questions from U.S. senators, all in hopes to be confirmed as the next Supreme Court justice. She answered many questions on her previous record as a judge and her views on the Constitution. U.S. Senator Alex Padilla from California used his time to ask her about federal Indian law.
Can you just share what your understanding is of the federal government's legal and moral trust responsibility and relationship with tribal governments?
Yes, Senator. It is established in the law, the Supreme Court has established that there is a special trust relationship between Indian tribes and the federal government. Indian tribes are, as a general matter, considered to be sovereigns, and the relationship is a sovereign-to-sovereign relationship, but it's one in which the federal government has some responsibilities related to the Indian nation, and it's very, very important care and trust responsibility that the federal government has in terms of making sure that the tribes are recognized and cared for in the context of our system.
Jackson's nomination could be voted on as soon as early April, and if she is confirmed, she will become the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. A virtual celebration by California tribes was held yesterday on the recent transfer of the Klamath Dams. The dams were transferred to the Klamath River Renewal Corporation. The private entity was created to restore the river's natural flows and aid fishery. One of the goals of the event was to bring awareness and update on how and when the dams are planning to be removed. The event featured Klamath River speakers and premiered the new Klamath Salmon Run short film. A 5K salmon run is now open for registry and will be held in May. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, we hear from Kansas State Representative Ponkawee Victors Cozad. But first, we meet Jenny Davis, the Chickasaw Nation Dynamic Women of the Year, as we continue to celebrate Women's History Month. As we wrap up celebrating Women's History Month, we recognize that many tribes were matrilineal. Women were leaders and held a number of positions that helped to govern their people. The Chickasaw Nation is one example. Historically, it was matrilineal. Today, the nation has a Western form of government with a governor and a tribal legislature. And in 2006, the nation created the Chickasaw Nation Dynamic Women of the Year Award to honor women from the tribe who are making significant contributions. We are joined today by Jenny Davis. She's an associate professor of anthropology and American Indian Studies at the University of Illinois. She's also the director of the American Indian Studies program. Welcome, Jenny, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation to be here.
So as I mentioned in my opening, the Chickasaw Nation was historically matrilineal. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. There were a lot of aspects of Chickasaw culture and life that were determined and decided by women at a lot of different levels. That includes decisions that are made in the home and decisions that are made for the larger community, for clan, for family. And that continues today. Actually, there are a lot of Chickasaw women who have important roles within the community, whether it's from the tribal legislature to being in our departments for education and history and culture. And so it's a recognition of the contributions and the general intelligence and sophistication that women bring to our community.
In your work, have you discovered other tribal nations that are also matrilineal?
Absolutely. There are lots of communities and there are broad kind of generalizations, but a lot of the communities throughout east of the Mississippi, so in the Southeast, it's quite typical, especially for communities that are closely related to us linguistically or culturally. So the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Seminole, and the Muskogee Creek. Also other communities throughout the Northeast, and then kind of just throughout the Americas. It tends to be something that we find pretty regularly.
As I also mentioned in my opening, you, of course, won the Chickasaw Nation Dynamic Woman of the Year Award. When you got that award, what was your reaction? And since then, can you tell us a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities that comes with?
Absolutely. I was really surprised and very humbled. I think of all of the women that I know of in the community that I would, think of for that recognition. And I just had not been thinking of myself in that way. So I was really humbled. Also because of the previous recipients are just a group of really incredible women who do amazing things in our community and in the world. So it is really incredible recognition. It's a great inspiration to keep doing things and to really make sure that I am always centering Chickasaws and Native people in the work that I do. And it's also a great way to kind of be in conversation with folks in the community that I've known for a long time or that I haven't met yet. So the opportunity to think about the programs that are going on in the Chickasaw Nation, and then I've been connected with other areas, especially in higher education, so universities or tribal colleges, and thinking about what my involvement might be with them.
Aside from being an academic, you're also a writer. I understand that you've written a few books and some poems. Tell us about those.
Absolutely. My first book is actually based on my research, and it's with the Chickasaw Nation. It's about our language revitalization efforts over the past more than a decade, and really thinking about the importance of the Chickasaw language in our families and in communities, and thinking about the way that our growth in areas like economic sovereignty and tribal sovereignty really broadly are really making those language revitalization possible, and shaping what we're able to do with the language and who's able to learn it. The book of poetry came out in February. It's from the University of Arizona Press, and it is called Trickster Academy. And it's really thinking about and writing about my experiences in higher education, but also in a lot of spaces that natives are in today that we might be unexpected.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for telling us so much. I feel like I learned so much from this conversation.
Well, again, thank you for the invitation and for the work that you all do at Indian Country today.
Ricey Wild has been writing her whole life. She's worked in radio and for the Native American Journalists Association. She started publishing her column, It Ain't Easy Being Indian, in the 90s, and has been retelling the adventures of an urban Indigenous woman who moved back to her tribal lands. Welcome to the show, Ricey.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So tell us, what started you when you were first starting this column? What started you and prompted you to do this?
Well, it was interesting. I was actually working for Native American Journalists Association in 1998, and I got to meet a whole lot of amazing people. And I met Mark Anthony Rollo, who was the editor of The Circle at the time. And he and I got to be friends, and he liked my writing. And so I submitted three little pieces for something he called 10 Little Indian Myths. And one of mine was, all Indian women know how to make fry bread. That was one of them, and I still don't. So the next editor of The Circle, her name was Sue, I don't remember her last name. She wondered why there weren't any female writers, columnists for The Circle. And so she asked me to submit a sample piece. And that was November 1998. And in it, I introduced myself as an urban Indian woman. My green fingernails. I was a vegetarian at the time. I love my city of Minneapolis. And it wasn't really like a dating ad or anything like that. It was just introducing myself as who I am. Well, how then I became published monthly in The Circle. And that was for a few years until I moved up here.
When you're finding topics and ideas to cover in this column, where are you drawing your inspiration from? I mean, you started this, as you mentioned, in 1998. How do you sort of get inspiration to continue writing about topics over that long of a time?
I have a lot to say. And a lot of it, a lot of it comes from my personal experience. Like, I thought of myself as a writer when I was a little girl. And the fact that I get to do this, to me is, I have this platform, to be able to tell my story as an Indigenous woman and the things I experience. And the other things that I think about are topical in Indian country that are, important to us now. I like to bring attention to pipeline issues or just cultural issues or things that I feel are important for other people to know. And like I say, with this platform, I get to be able to speak and let other people know another point of view, from an Indigenous woman.
And when you're describing, I guess, the difference between a columnist and a journalist, what do you typically tell people is the difference? And what advice would you have for someone who maybe wanted to be a columnist?
I would say just keep a journal and just keep writing because, a handwritten journal, and you never know what's going to come out. You don't know what's in the back of your mind sometimes. And that you go, oh, okay, I remember that, or this is important, or that's what advice I'd give. And I used to actually give out those little memo things that you can flip over to people because I encourage everybody to write. I think everybody's got it in them to do that.
What do you think is the difference between a columnist and a journalist?
Okay, so a columnist pretty much gets to choose their own topics, and a journalist is reporting, allegedly from an objective point of view. And so, if I have, done some journalistic and, pieces and articles, but that's not really my skill.
Well, Ricey, thank you so much for being here and for your work.
Thank you so much, Aaliyah. I appreciate it.
Kansas State Representative Ponkawi Victors Kozad made history last week when she presided over the House of Representatives. It marked the first time in Kansas's history that a Native lawmaker had presided over the body. Unfortunately, that history-making moment came with controversy. Joining us today is Representative Victors Kozad to share what happened next. Hi, Representative. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So for our viewers who are learning about this for the first time, tell us what happened as you were presiding over the House of Representatives.
Well, first of all, it was a great honor to even be asked to chair that day. And I was so excited. And I've been in the legislature for 12 years. And so I waited 12 years and I was excited to do so. And while I was up there, when I ever go to the mic down at the well, it gets noisy, and usually the person presiding over will hit their gavel to kind of quiet down the body while somebody is at the well to be respectful to them. And so that's what I was doing in the chair. I couldn't really hear the representative at the well because there was a lot of chit chat. It was around lunchtime. We had been on the floor for a while, and then I hit my gavel, and unfortunately, it led to a racist remark toward myself. And I can't say that I was shocked, but I guess I was shocked that the representative have said it on an open mic for everybody to hear. And I just remember hearing like a lot of gasps in the audience, and a lot of people was upset. And yeah, that's basically what happened.
What exactly did this other representative say to you?
Well, I was in the chair and I had hit my gavel to quiet down the body because I couldn't really hear him good. And he had said something like, wow, kind of startled. And then he turned around, and I remember him saying to me, um, I had to make sure, or somewhere along these lines, I thought that might have been a tomahawk. And that's when I heard the gasps, and I was just, I couldn't believe he had said that on an open mic. This is nothing new to me, though. I have heard, other comments made, but this one was on an open mic, and everybody heard it, and everybody, but me was shocked that he had said that to me.
So, to be clear, it sounds like he was comparing the gavel to a tomahawk.
Yes, yes, he was, and it's very unfortunate that that happened during my time, because I do feel like it was a personal attack as well, because I have been working so hard for 12 years to break down these stereotypes, bring in Native Americans to the Capitol, encouraging them to testify at different hearings, trying to break down all these stereotypes, even having Native American Day at the Capitol. And it was like he just reverted us back instead of forward.
You said earlier that your colleagues were gasping in the audience. What exactly were they saying, and have they supported you since that has happened last week?
Some of my colleagues reached out over the weekend and sent me an email just saying, I did a good job while I was in the chair, and they were proud of me. I think everybody's still kind of like, it's such a touchy subject that they don't know how to respond to something like this. And so, it just kind of caught everybody. I think I was more caught off guard than anything, and so were my colleagues as well. That he would say something like that to me. You know, um, and then later, he didn't apologize to me directly, but he did send me an email later that evening. And that's when I said, no, I'm tired of accepting these kind of apologies. You know, we should all know how to conduct ourselves in the Kansas House of Representatives, in the legislatures, and there was no room for this type of behavior.
How do you think that this incident sort of plays into the grander narrative of Native mascots? I think so often we talk about Native mascots, and the tomahawk being a key mascot for the Kansas City Chiefs. How do you think that this plays into that grander narrative?
Well, just, I feel like, we have to call people out when they say things like this to us every single time. Even coming in with a name like Ponkawi, people always asked if they could, if I had a nickname, or, just to even be acknowledged by my Indian, my Native American name. It's always been, an uphill battle as far as people, referring to me correctly, I guess. And so with the mascots added in, he just thought, he could say whatever he wanted to me, and that's not right. And so that's why, I was so upset afterwards, but because I thought, a moment in time, it's supposed to be a special occasion, it kind of turned ugly real fast.
I want to give you the opportunity, if you were speaking to Representative John Wheeler yourself after this incident, what would you say to him?
I would say, I hope that he learned from this incident, and not only him, but I hope everybody learned that was sitting in that body that you can't speak to us this way, and you can't, get away with it. You're gonna feel the heat on it, and I'm so glad that it was on an open mic, and so people could hear it, and that it's just not me making up these things, because a few weeks ago, the Kansas education commissioner had said some derogatory remarks toward Native Americans, and this kind of type of behavior can't be done. I mean, in a professional or any world, you have to be respectful to us, just like I go in there every day and I'm respectful to my colleagues, their values, their religion, whatever. I stand up, I say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, and so I expect the same respect, and that's what I said issued in my press release, and I stand beside it.
Well, Representative Victor Kozad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.